Welcome back to Unorthodox Ministries.
Welcome back.
We're your hosts. I'm Sabrina.
I'm Brenda. Today's title, Forgive Them Not. Or, in the Russian accent, Forgive Them Not. Anyway, speaking of England and Russia, England has banned anything biblical or from the Bible, or even willing to throw out the Bible completely if it interferes with their current agenda. Russia has declared the United States as immoral and godless. Can you imagine that? Godless Russia, communist Russia calls United States godless and immoral, as well as they banned LGBT over there.
They did.
They did.
They what did they label it as? Man, I can't think of it right now.
There was this rabbi. He was in line, and he was waiting to get on the bus. So he was at it was a really long line, and he's like towards the back. And here this man sees that there's this holy rabbi in line. And so he gets out of line, which was, he was closer to the front. And he says, Sir, I'm going to go ahead and give you my ticket so that you can get in there faster. And so he switches places. So the rabbi pays for his ticket and he gets on the bus. And then he goes and he runs up to the rabbi. Hey, rabbi, can you give me your ticket? Because you forgot to give me your ticket. The rabbi goes, well, I don't have a ticket. He goes, well, how are you going to get on the bus? He goes, well, I didn't have any money, but I knew that God would make a way, and I prayed, and then you showed up. He goes, well, what am I supposed to do? He goes, well, pray. And so, Sabrina, can you get us started?
Yes, of course. And what I was saying about Russia, that they called it an extremist organization.
And is it not? It really is.
They don't want their children to be impacted by that, and so they're actually cracking down on it, and they're doing raids on
and the reason why it is extreme is because we've gotten to the point where a college guy can run around naked and go and shit in the backyard in the kiddie pool and everyone laughs. But if we bring up that homosexuality is a sin, everyone gasps. And it's like people died, lots of men died in order for us to have the freedom to pray, the freedom of religion. Yeah. And we're calling, transgender men and women heroes instead of the people who died for our freedom. And they're trying to take away our freedom of speech. You know what I mean? And so, again, we don't judge anybody, wherever, everybody has their shortcomings, and we don't judge anybody for where they are. I mean, even homosexual people need to find God, and they need to start where they're at. But the point is a sin is a sin is a sin. We didn't say it was a sin, the Bible did. So anyways, begin.
So Jesus said in Matthew chapter 6, verse 12, forgive us the wrongs we have done, as we ourselves release forgiveness to those who have wronged us.
True. And so, it's taught that all you have to do is call upon Jesus, and you make that one proclamation, and you're in heaven. But it's not true, because forgiveness isn't free. You must forgive in order to be forgiven. So if you walk around and you don't have unforgiveness for people, then what makes you believe that you're going to be forgiven? You have to forgive other people for their wrongs to you.
Yeah. Joseph had a coat of many colors. Joseph was sold as a slave.
So Joseph was sold as a slave by his own family members. Mm-hmm. And, a lot of our family members have hurt us in many ways. I mean, would we have family if we didn't forgive their wrongs? I mean, Sabrina used to pull me around by my hair looking for a chongo. I could sit there and still hold those things against her. Where's that chongo? I'm all going around just has my hair. Sabrina! But the point is that, we wouldn't be so close, sisters, if we didn't have forgiveness for each other when we do offend each other. And when he had that coat of many colors because his father favored him, that made his other brothers very jealous. And he was sold as a slave. And had he not forgiven his brothers, there would be no 12 tribes of Judah. And so he called them into the chamber after he was, in his high position. And if they had walked in there like, oh, who do you think you are, Joseph? Think you're big now? That's why we sold you as a slave. Then there probably still wouldn't have been 12 tribes of Judah, but they went in there and they asked for forgiveness first. And so, he forgave them, and they did have, they did great things. That's where the 12 tribes came from, was from his family, from his forgiveness. And he suffered greatly.
Yeah. Forgiveness is not a feeling, it is a choice. Some people actually prefer the bitterness of the past than the peace of God. Jesus said in Luke chapter 6, verse 38, give and it will be given to you. Good measure, pressed down, shaken together, running over, will be put into your lap. For with measure you use it, will measure back to you.
And we'll go back over that verse in a minute.
So forgiveness is not a feeling.
So yeah, forgiveness is not just a feeling. You can feel still hurt by somebody and choose to forgive them, especially if, a lot of times people have good intentions, and you just want to sit there and hold on to that bitterness, and you just can't do that. However, forgiveness is not something that Jesus says, go and sin no more. And so that's another thing that you have to think about. Let's say your spouse cheated on you or somebody did you wrong. Okay, you forgive them, you can let them back in your life, but they need to not do it again. You don't just forgive and forgive and forgive, and they need to go and sin no more. If not, then you let them people out of your life, and you forgive them by putting it in God's hands, because he saw it too. And you have to understand that he will take care of them. And so then, forgiving them doesn't always mean giving them a free pass. So you give them, a pass if they sin no more. But forgiveness, when you can still let that person go, they don't have to be, is by putting it in the Lord's hands and knowing that he saw it too, and that he knows right from wrong, and he'll take care of it. He is the judge. And so then to allow it to not be sitting in our hearts. And so that helps us to be able to move on and not be in chains from what those people did. Some people are still bringing up something from 30 years ago. They're bringing up stuff from their childhood, something their brother or sister did to them when they were teenagers. They're bringing up, just old things when that's not correct. Look at who you are today. Look at who they are today. And that's what matters, because we've all got a past.
Yeah.
And you sure don't want,
because you don't want
somebody bringing up
you
all
don't
your
want to
stuff.
keep reliving that, because we've moved past that, and
Absolutely.
then all it does is just make that person feel horrible, because you go back and remember, and you're like, you know what I mean, and it
Yeah.
just, I don't know, it's not good. I mean, you for sure don't want to keep feeling those things over and over again. You want to move past that, you want to move on.
Absolutely. And so then again,
you want the
people would
peace.
prefer to live in bitterness.
You want the peace of God.
Yeah, in their bitterness of the past, because don't you forget this and that. And really, the people who offended you, they've already moved on with their lives. They're not sitting there thinking about it. The only one sitting there thinking about it is you. You're the one in a bitterness ocean. You're sitting there inside of this dark ocean of bitterness, and all you're doing is hurting yourself.
The Jewish covenant was not.
Wait, could we go over that verse that we were talking about?
Oh, sorry. So Jesus said in Luke chapter 6, verse 38, give and it will be given to you. Good measure, pressed down, shaken together, running over, will be put into your lap. For the measure you use, it will be measured back to you.
That's right. And so give and you shall be given. My daughter went to church the other day with one of her friends, and she's like, oh, it was so annoying. Like the preacher said one verse the whole time. Give and it shall be given. Give and it shall be given. And all I mean, he was speaking about, currency, money. And so, I guess they kept on kind of asking for money, and she goes, and then her friend's grandma, which was like on a fixed income, gave like $150 of money because she wants to be given, and so she's going to give in order to be given. And that's kind of sad because a lot of churches do prey on the poor, and when that same poor person needs, they can't even go ask their own church. And if you think about it, in the Bible, a lot of churches, they don't even teach the Old Testament, but they sure hold on to that tithing. Tithing is from the Old Testament. Now, I'm not saying that you shouldn't give, but we're not in the law anymore where you should give 10% or you're going straight to hell. It's not like that. You give by the discernment of the Holy Spirit that is in you. If the Holy Spirit is telling you to give, then you give. And if you're supposed to help a person, then help that person, because you know what? A lot of these churches aren't. So if you can give your money to a person that's going to help them, then do that. Now, I'm not saying that you shouldn't give your church, especially if your church is helping people and doing well, or your heart is convicting you that you should give. But don't give because they're telling you that it's law. Because remember that we are no longer in the law; we're under grace. And Jesus he didn't tithe. And when they came up to him and tried to convict him about tithing, he says, give to Caesar what belongs to Caesar, and give to God what belongs to God. And so here we have all these Christian people that are suffering, and they can't ask another Christian for help because God cannot squeeze a dollar out of them. They can't squeeze a quarter out of them, but they think, oh, I gave $20 once at when I went to church. I'm good. And that's not true. And give and that shall be given isn't just currency. Do you want forgiveness from God? Then forgive other people. You must give in order to receive. So if you want forgiveness, you must give forgiveness. Do you want love in your life? How much love are you giving out? You must give love in order to receive love. Do you want loyalty? You must give loyalty if you want to receive loyalty. There's all these people on my Facebook. They're always talking about disloyalty, 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 while they're in their, acting like very fast people with this person and that person and that person and that person. Here they come across as as whores. In the Bible it talks about whoredom. And then they're talking about why they're not respected and why there's no loyalty. Well, what are you putting out in the world? Because it will come back to you shaken together, pressed up, and put on your lap. That's good and bad. For what you send off, it comes back to you.
The Jewish covenant was not replaced by the church. This is replacement theology.
Absolutely. And so then, um, yes, the law was is in the old, and then there was grace. But see, Jesus came to fulfill the law.
Mhm.
But the covenant was given to the Jewish people. God is the same today, yesterday, and forever. That covenant still stands. It stands for them because they were meant to reject Christ, because Christ gave himself. Remember, he says no when they try to come for him, and they
Mhm.
and Peter cut off the one of the Pharisees' ear. He killed the ear. He's like, no, they're not coming for me. I'm giving myself. And so then that was all meant to happen. Why? So that you and me could find grace. So that was put in their hearts. Their hearts were hardened on purpose by God so that we could find the gospel all over the world. And I've gone to a church. As a matter of fact, it was a church that was one of my family members is the pastor of that church. And I don't, he was told by another family member of mine how I am honoring the Sabbath on Saturday, and and going to, reading the Old Testament. Well, he went up in the front of the pulpit and was basically preaching to me and talk about we're not Jews, we're Christians, and actually went as far as to saying that the Holocaust happened because God was punishing the Jewish people for not being Christian. I walked out. I walked out right there and then. I'm not going to deal with anti-Semitism. And to be honest, a lot of the church not they didn't walk out because of that. But when it says in the Bible, bless Israel and you will get blessed. Bless those who I will bless those who bless you, and I will curse those who curse you. And many people his went left that church afterwards. He had maybe 2 3 people going, and of course he still showed up and did his thing. But I mean, you cannot curse the Jewish people, for any curse that you put upon them comes back upon you. And so that is to this day. The Jewish people are the apple of God's eye. Are you sticking your finger in God's eye? Because that's what you're doing when you're pointing the finger at them.
Hmm. In Romans chapter 11, verse 25, lest you be wise in your own sight, I do not want you to be unaware of this mystery, brothers. A partial hardening has come upon Israel until the fullness of the Gentiles has come in.
There you go. It says there in Romans that there's a time of the Gentiles. And once the time of the Gentiles has been fulfilled, then they will start to find Christ. 2/3 of the Jewish people, which were, with the Gentiles, because they were, over here living with us, and they were scattered all around the world. 2/3 of the Jewish, I mean, 1/3 of the Jewish people have already turned to Jesus, to Christ. And so a lot of Christian Jews are in Israel already. And so the time of the Gentiles has come. It's been our time all this time. Now Israel is a state again. Now it's becoming to where there's a great falling away, the apostasy of a great falling away of the Christian church, a great lukewarmness coming upon the church. And now Israel is, it's basically the focus of the world.
Jesus said in Luke chapter 21, verse 20, but when you see Jerusalem surrounded by armies, then you know that its desolation has come near.
Absolutely. So, and it also says in the Bible that once they're surrounded by, by armies, that it's the end times, and to look up into heaven and expect Christ to come. So we are in the end times. There is the apostasy of the falling away of the church. And the time is now. He could come at any time. In the Bible, it says that 1,000 years is as a day, and a day is as 1,000 years. So God's time isn't anything like our time. So if Jesus is supposed to return in 3 days, having to do with God's time, well, it's been more than 2,000 years, and we're on that third day. Israel has become a state again. They're surrounded by armies, and the whole world is focused on them. We are living the Bible more than we ever had ever before. It's come to life. Everything that was supposed to happen has happened. And now Christ can come at any point. Are you ready? Are you being forgiving? Do you go to sleep at night just wonder, I mean, just sitting there and criticizing people even in your thoughts? For your thoughts are the Lord's footstool.
Um, I was reading in chapter in Joel, actually, and it's in chapter 3, and I was reading it, and it was just talking about how I'll just read it real quick. And Jesus says, and the Lord says in chapter 3, and I'm just going to skip around a little bit just so that you get the feeling of it. It says, then you know that I, the Lord your God, dwell in Zion, my holy hill. Jerusalem will be holy. Never again will foreigners invade her. And it's talking about in the days, that the mountains will drip with new wine, the hills will flow. It's, in other words, like it is now, how it's just, it was flowing, it was good, everything was good. And then what happened? On October 7th, there was the invasion of Hamas, right?
Mhm.
Well, it's talking about, and in verse 20, it said, I mean, actually, let's start in verse 19. It says, "But Egypt will be desolate, Edom a desert waste, because of violence done to the people of Judah, in whose land they shed innocent blood. Judah will be inhabited forever, and Jerusalem through all generations." And then this gave me chills. He says, "Shall I leave their innocent blood unavenged? No, I will not.
That means even the children.
The Lord dwells in Zion."
Because when we like even now, I mean, look at all the people putting their children on TikTok. And I mean, we are teaching our
And
children
it's just,
early sexual
and it's
immorality. We're
because
teaching our children
it's
early
because
evil.
there's so many people talking about, genocide, but I mean, who invaded Israel first? You know what I mean? It was just like they come in, but when Israel tries to defend themselves, they're not allowed to, because
Absolutely.
now it's that. But in the Bible, it clearly says, "Shall I leave their innocent blood unavenged? No, I will not. The Lord dwells in Zion."
Absolutely. Not only
That's
that,
it's
but Iran and Palestine were the same countries dancing in the streets and cheering during 9/11. And but yet we are sitting there and and all of our people are sitting there defending them
Mhm.
instead of Israel. And the thing is that God will bless those who bless them and curse those
Israel.
who curse them.
Amen.
Our country has given billions of dollars, not only to Hamas, but Iran. So our billions of dollars have cursed many Israeli lives.
So yeah, I just needed to throw that in there real quick because it was just like, wow. When we were just talking about how Jerusalem is surrounded by armies, and they're talking about it now. There's they're like already teaming up, you know,
Absolutely. I mean,
China,
it
Russia,
says in
Iran.
Revelation that when the Euphrates River dries up, that the demons that have been chained under that river all this time will be set loose, and the armies will be able just to march on through. Euphrates River is pretty dried up,
Mhm.
and the armies are already getting ready. I mean, Russia has a military base right next door to Israel, right there.
Well, going back to our topic, there's four classes of people.
Yes, four different classes of people.
There's wayside people. These people are extremely hardened and refuse to accept anything having to do with the kingdom of Christ.
Absolutely. And Jesus talks about, the parable of the different seeds that are out there, which is us, the different types of people. And that's where we're getting this from. And there are those people who it doesn't matter if they have miraculous things happening around them. It doesn't matter what you say. It just doesn't matter. They are so hardened that they are not going to take it.
There's the rock side people. These people receive Christ for a time until it becomes inconvenient. So they're either persecuted or it gets in the way of what they want to do.
And that's like most
Most
people.
people.
Yeah, because like for instance, even the Germans all, classified themselves as Christian, but still followed Hitler. That's kind of what we're doing now. I mean, we're not um we're following like an invisible Hitler while we're just going along with what everybody else is doing, or not
Mhm.
us, but the nation.
Yeah.
Most people usually go along with what most people are doing, and that's what's going on.
Mhm.
But you ask them if they're Christian, they're like, yeah.
Yeah, it's just like, there's no more leaders. There's only followers nowadays because it's just like they changed it into a challenge. You know what I'm saying?
Right, right.
So, oh, are you gonna do the challenge? You know what I'm saying? So everybody just follows along
Yeah,
in
the only way
line.
that they're gonna like post a Bible verse if it's like
It's of a
it's
challenge.
a challenge to put a Bible verse every day, and they're probably not even really reading it or getting into what it means. They're just gonna go find a verse and put it on there. They did the challenge.
Yeah. Then there's thorn people. These people accept Christ but are more worried about work, paying bills, building status, and worried about their place in the world. These people never grow.
When we go to heaven, and it sucks that we have to die first in order to realize this, we're going to realize that none of that stuff really mattered. None of that stuff. The money, the cars, you know, I mean, I only put on makeup and get dressed every day because if not, I'm not going to be accepted by the world. They'll be like, ew. I mean, would you want to watch me if I came, with no makeup on and my hair done? Probably not. And so then, but some people, they live their lives. That's their everything is their job, their status, who they are. And when they do have some free time, they feel like they deserve to fill that free time with, you know, a bunch of junk because they worked so hard. They're not going to even give their free time to God. You know what I mean? And that sucks because, it's just like your husband or, your spouse. Um, you don't want them just to give you their leftover time. You want them to make time
Make
for
time for
you.
you.
And Jesus is the same way. We're supposed to have a relationship with him. We're not just supposed to give him leftovers. I mean, it's just like,
Or only when you need him.
yeah, you go out to eat and you're like,
It's just like the people that you never hear from unless they need some.
absolutely. You go out to
You
eat
know?
and there's a little bit of leftovers. Oh, well, I'm going to give my leftover, piece of bread to the poor. And then you're like, I give so much, you know?
Yeah. Then there's the good soil people. These people are committed to Christ no matter what comes their way. They dwell upon him day and night. These people possess the power of the kingdom and their increase is great. In Matthew chapter 13, verse 23, sorry, as for what was sown on good soil, this is the one who hears the word and understands it. He indeed bears fruit and yields in one case 100-fold, in another 60, in another 30.
Absolutely. And so a lot of people, they'll read the Bible and read the Bible and read the Bible, like, I just don't get this. And it's because they're not the good soil people. I mean, when you have good soil, the Holy Spirit speaks to you. You're like, I don't know how I know this, but I just know this. You can read something, or even like, there's signs everywhere. There's signs everywhere. And when you start listening to God, He speaks to you through everything. And you're like, the
Yeah.
more that you start listening to that inner voice, the more that you start listening to those gut feelings, the more that you are intuitive, the more that you are like God, the more that you listen to that voice. And so it talks about, one will have an increase of 30, one of 60, 100. And that's what we bring into the kingdom. Like, my, one of my favorite teachers is John Hagee. And I mean, that man has saved so many lives. He saved mine. He's been my teacher since I was very young, that I've always liked to listen to him because he yells at me and I need to be yelled at. And so not everybody likes that type of teaching, but I do. I mean, that's what I need. And so, I mean, he's the one that had a lot to do with, because he went and met up with Trump, and he had a lot to do with why Jerusalem was recognized as the capital of Israel. He did that. And so, I mean, his increase is 100-fold. And then there's us little people that have a podcast with, 70 or so subscribers, and that is good enough. So it's not like, oh, well, this person is more holy because they have, you know, 2,000, 5,000 subscribers and you don't, so you must not be as holy. No, there are certain people that only I will be able to reach. There are certain people that only you will be able to reach if you're doing your God's will for your life. Because Lord knows that most people don't want to do God's will for their life. They want to do their own will. But we all have a purpose. If you're doing your purpose with what you were meant to do, because we're all ministers here. Every single person is a minister and a disciple when you're truly saved. Are you, it's just like Isaiah Saldivar, I love that guy. He came out in a reel and he was like, Send me to China? People want to like, oh yeah, I will go minister in China. Send me to Russia. Well, you can't even preach. You can't even preach to people next door. You don't even go and spread the gospel at the park. You don't even talk about, the gospel to your neighbors at work. Do they even know you're Christian? Do they even know? And so that's the difference. What type of person are you? Are you a wayside person, a rock side person? Or do you have good soil?
Playing from
Yeah.
Sabrina's S21 Ultra.
Sorry.
Hey, Alexa. But anyways, that's what we have for you today. And may the Lord bless you and keep you. May he make his face to shine upon you, be gracious unto you, and give you peace. And thank you for joining us this week, you guys.
All right. Until next time, guys. God bless you.
Bye.